And welcome, everyone. My name is Lecia Schall, and I'm a board member and currently chair of the Field Trip Committee for the Portland Chapter of NPSO, otherwise known as the Native Plant Society of Oregon, which promotes the enjoyment, study, and protection of Oregon's native plants. As part of our mission, we present a speaker each month on timely topics of interest to our members. And I'd especially like to welcome any new members we have with us tonight. Or I'd appreciate any visitors we have as well. Tonight is our annual NPSO Portland Members Photo and Stories program. Paul Slichter is our host this evening and will be introducing each photographer. And he will explain how the questions will roll out. First, let's review some Zoom etiquette. Your audio and video should be turned off during the program. And if you have a question during the program, then type it into the chat. And so we're going to try to have at least one or two people ask a question in between each presenter. And you may notice also that there's a closed captioning feature, which you can click on to enable that so that you can read as well as hear what people are saying. We do welcome you to stay after the program, and at that time we will be able to open up all of our audio and visuals for continued conversations on tonight's program, as well as some of our upcoming events and activities of interest. We hope that you can stay and join us for this active discussion between NPSO members and others interested in native plants and our regional environment. As I said, our guest host for the evening is Paul Slichter. And Paul is a retired high school biology teacher and has been a longtime chapter member in both the Native Plant Society of Oregon and the Washington Native Plant Society. He has been a chapter field trip chair, field trip coordinators for 3 NPSO state annual meetings. He's given numerous programs at chapter meetings and is currently busy conducting rare plant surveys and general plant monitoring for various public and private entities. Paul has learned a lot about our local flora from chapter members over the years and believes it's important to do his share to pay it forward, including editing some of our slides. So welcome, Paul.
Yep, I'm Paul, and welcome again to the 2025 NPSO Portland Chapter's member photo show. And we've been doing this as a chapter since at least the 1980s, and it gives a chance for members to share some of their images that they've taken during travels during the year. And in the past, we also did this when in person, and everybody brought holiday food, and we shared that and had good conversations and things like that. But since COVID, haven't been able to do that. This year we have 9 presenters. Each person will have 7 minutes to speak, and we'll do our best to monitor the time and give notice as you're coming to the end of your time so we can keep things moving and get everybody through this. And as you finish speaking about a particular slide, let me know so I can cue you on to the next slide. And then at the end of each person's presentation, if there's been anybody that's asked a question in the chat, please type those in the chat, and we'll give you a couple of minutes to answer as best you can. And if there's extra questions or whatever that we did, if we run out of time, then we'll do those at the end. Anyway, our first presenter for the evening is David Cammack, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name correctly there.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. And Paul, maybe you said it, but we have to signal Paul when we're ready to move to the next slide.
Okay. So this is Mountain Hemlock up on Mount Red, above timberline, about 6,500 feet. Next. In the same area, this is a photograph of Davidson Penstemon, which grows up to Silcox Hut in that area. Next. This is another Penstemon, Penstemon rupicola. Doesn't grow up as high, I don't think, as Davidson, but it's a really nice Penstemon, likes to grow on vertical clip paper. Next. Erigeron Howelli. This is an endemic Erigeron that grows in the Columbia Gorge, and this is up Larch Mountain. Next. Okay, this is Wyethia angustifolia, also known as narrow-leaf mule ears. And we saw this on an NPSO hike to Cammack Prairie in Washington back in June, I believe. But it was a really nice plant to find. I've never seen it before. And I guess it used to grow in Portland at some point, but they're probably all fixed. Next. This is Erigeron organis, or gorge flea bane. It's another endemic Erigeron that grows in the Columbia Gorge. Next. This is a grass that grows nearby. I believe it is Cammack Howelli. I believe that's what it is, but next. This is a photograph of Clintonia uniflora. It's fairly common in the Cascades, like to grow in forested areas in dark forests. Next. Another Penstemon. This is Penstemon glandulosus. This photograph was taken in on the hills above Hood River back in May. That's really nice plant. Next. This is a photograph of Western Wahoo, or burning bush, at Tryon State Park. One of the plants I was searching for this year and managed to find in the seed. You can see the groupings of 3 balls of seed welded together there. Have an interesting plant. Next. This is Calicortus marcocarpus, or sagebrush Mariposa lily in eastern Oregon, out near China. Next. Another picture in that same area. This is Western juniper, which is becoming a bit of an invasive plant out there. But one of the few trees that grows in that area, mostly grasses. Next. And the next 3 photographs are specific to you. This is McIver State Park, and is the largest Pacific view in Oregon. You can see the fluted trunk there. Next. Another Pacific view up the Sandy River. Photographs just showing the branching. Next. And found this Pacific view up there towards Timothy Lake. Been attacked by sapsuckers, which is kind of interesting. I've been searching around for information on this, and we're still looking. Next. Western Larch. This photograph was taken in October as the trees are starting to change color up on the east side of Mount Hood. Next. And this is Western Oak Fern. This is as the fern changes color, it turns white, which is kind of interesting, made for an interesting photograph. It is a color photograph. Next. Lilium columbianum, or Columbia lily. Very common in the Cascades and really nice plant. Next. Last two photographs I have are of big leaf maple. And this area was burned during the Labor Day fires back in 2020, which explains all the dead trees. And big leaf maple is the orange shrub that you can see quite clearly because the leaves are changing color. And if you just look at across the Clackamas River, just probably about 10 miles above Estacada. Next. My last photograph, same kind of thing. Big leaf maple. And that's it. My 7 minutes is up. So.
Okay, any questions for David?
And so far, except
Okay.
actually, I want to know where the burned area was, David.
I mean, it's along the Clackamas River, above Estacada.
Okay, thank you. We'll talk later about that.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Don Jacobson coming up with his marvelous photos.
Like I'm still muted. Okay, here we go. Cascade Mariposa Lily. This was taken on a NPSO trip led by Ron Klump to Mount Hood Meadows area. And the most interesting feature of the trip was the fact that we got a chairlift ride up to the ridge. And for those of us who are of a certain age, it was free. Next slide. And I believe this is also, no, this is from the annual meeting. The slides I have are from either Ron's trip to Hood River, Hood Meadows, or from the annual meeting. Next. And this is from the Ron's trip to the Hood River Meadows area, named after a botanist who lived in the town of Bingen, and I believe his cabin is still preserved. Next. And Castanea tenuis from the field trip. A bit about the dark backgrounds. I took a workshop in Colorado for wildflowers, and the leader of the workshop said that as a critique, said that my photos looked like they were taken in a studio, and I had to point out to him that's precisely the point I was trying to make. Next slide. And this is also from our annual meeting, and I don't recall the name of the botanist who, Forest Service botanist who led the trip. Perhaps somebody can put it in the chat, but I knew he was one of us when he said that the thing that he looked for in, yes, Brantz, wonderful fellow, and I knew he was one of us when he said that the thing he liked about the Colomia grandiflora was the ones he could find that had the purple-blue anthers. And so I thought that was really great. Next. And this is also from the field trip. It was a new flower to me. We spent the first part of the trip going through an extremely dry area. We dropped down into a very wet area, and this was one of the plants that was in that wet area. Next. And one of the reasons why I went to the annual meeting was to photograph Downingia. I hadn't seen one in about 20 years, and so I was very fortunate to see it on a couple of workshops, a couple of field trips. Next slide, please. And this is from the first field trip, which was on the Friends of the Gorge property off the Dalles Mountain Road. Next slide. And one of my favorite wildflowers, beautiful color, Lewis's monkey flower. And this was from on the slopes of Mount Hood. Next. Another favorite of mine to find is the white-stemmed Frasera. And it grows in very dry habitats, and it's in the gentian family, where a lot of the species grow in very wet areas. Next slide. And it's not only flowers that are interesting. This is hawkweed. And I just love the way that the hairs capture the jewels of water. Next slide. And this was from the field trip to the dancing rock. And it was identified as a Lupinus lepidus aridus. And I failed to accept that it was a Lupinus lepidus, because the ones that I know of that species have a low cushion community habits, the Lupinus lepidus lobii. And this is a much more robust plant, but indeed I was corrected. It's a lovely plant. Next slide. And lots of Madia gracilis. It was found on just about every hike at the annual meeting. Next slide. And this is a fern ally, and it was found on the Chenoweth table, or I believe it's called. Not very abundant. It was not nice to see it. Next slide. This was another new one. Unfortunately, it wasn't in bloom, but it was identified by people on the field trip, and maybe someday I'll get to see it in bloom. Next slide. And Brantz looked at me after seeing me photograph virtually every flower on the field trip, and he says, "Well, I've got a treat for you." And he was right on the money. This is in the mustard family, and I think its common name is something like Princess Plume. Next slide. And here's a little closer view of it. It was a little hard to get to area, but it was sure worth the effort. Next slide. And Howell's Brodea. Fortunately, the common name still carries the old genus name. My wife says Brodea was a fine name, and they shouldn't have changed it, but we'll keep Brodea as the common name. Next slide. And this was on several of the annual meeting field trips, the Slender Clarkia, or Farewell to Spring. Next slide. And this is one of the vernal pools. For me, the annual meeting was all about vernal pools, and it was just really lovely. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
I
Don.
appreciate the opportunity to show my work.
Yes, always a treat to see your lovely photos, Don. Any questions for him?
No questions at this point, and thank you for sharing.
Alrighty, we'll head on to Kim's presentation.
All right. Um, Great. Well, my name's Kim. I am not going to be showing you anything from any field trips that I did, but this is actually a event that I put on every year that the NPSO Portland chapter has helped me not only get started, but continues to sustain me and support me, which is a native plant bike planting event. So I help people kind of transition these street strips that are ubiquitous in our urban environment with native plants. So this is one of the street strips that I did. Um, these must be out of order, but yeah, so this is a street strip that I did that we planted in 2024. So this is a picture that was from its first growing season. So ignore the bachelor buttons that are in the front because I did not seed those, but the homeowner did. But you might be able to see some Oregon sunshine, some prairie June grass, goldenrod, things that will do, well for really hot sites, but also attract a lot of pollinators. Next. Um, yeah, so part of why I started doing this bike ride was really just to connect more people with native plants and get them to interact and learn about them in a way that is accessible. Not everybody can, drive out of town to go to all these beautiful spots that we get to visit. So I'm trying to bring those plants to people and have them in spots where they can see them, which is, everyone interacts with street strips kind of on a daily basis, walking around their neighborhoods. So each one of the uh, planting sites gets a sign like this, which has a QR code on it. And so people can scan the QR code and they can get a plant list of what we planted there. And not only a plant list, but like they can click on each different plant and it will give them a description of what that plant is, like its environmental benefits, how to grow it, and where it grows best. So there's a lot of information that they can get through those QR codes. And this is a site that we planted in just a few months ago, 2025. So I normally plant in September. Next. So this is, yeah. Um, so this was one of the sites that we did this year. So it has a big Oregon white oak that you can see kind of towards the end. It's really wide. It was long. Kind of a perfect place to put some kind of like oak meadow associates. So I help homeowners kind of get rid of the grass. I help prep the site, and then I work with different people to kind of select plants, source plants, and eventually plant them out. This year, I was able to get a grant from the Botanical Society of America to help kind of purchase some more plants for these areas. Next. So this is actually just half of another of the second street strip that we did this year. I think we did, this one was about 90 feet long and it's about, 9 to 10 feet across. So We're talking like, I think we converted about 1,400 square feet of grass to native plants. So this one also had kind of baby Oregon white oaks in them. So another kind of great oak associate space. Next. So this is us removing the grass. We had to get a U-Haul. We used a manual sod kicker, which is a lot of labor, and I would not recommend, but I had a lot of help, which was great. And yeah, next. So this is kind of the entire street strip that you can see. This is kind of pretty East Portland. It's past 82nd, which if anyone, most of you are probably familiar with, is like kind of devoid of tree canopy. And, uh, I just want not as many native plantings happening east of 82nd. So this is an exciting one for me. And this is right after we removed all of the sod. Next. So this is what it looks like when we bike up to these plantings. I have it all flagged out with the names of where the plants should go on each of the flags. So people biking up just need to place the plant right where they see a flag. So you can see some of the volunteers here from this last year. And I was fortunate enough this past year that a landscape designer actually helped me kind of create a planting plan. Next. So yeah, this is just another picture of people, day of planting day, putting in the plants. We had around 20 volunteers that came out on their bikes and helped with this planting. Next. So yeah, this is just like another part of that first planting, kind of a cute little corner. And you can kind of see the bikes in the back. We actually had quite a few people who were able to carry the plants on the bikes. You can see the cargo bike in the background. Next. This is a view of all the bikes. This is how we get around town. And yeah, so generally it's about 4 to 5 miles. I try to make it pretty to have the planting spaces kind of near each other, so it's not a slog. Next. So this is the second site that we saw prepped. It was a very hot day this day in September. I think it was September 20th. But we were able to, as you can see, you can probably see some blanket flower in the kind of towards the bottom of the picture. We were able to put in a Western serviceberry, pearly everlasting. There's a madrone kind of out of the picture. But there was some really, really fun plants that we put into this one. Next. So, not very exciting looking now. Um, this one had some manzanitas that were planted that I'm excited about, but this is what it looked like about a month or two after we started planting. So some nodding onions there in the foreground, lots of like foothill sedge and Romer, I think there's Romer's fescue here, but yeah, lots of really fun plants going into these ones. Next. Um, so this is a picture just of one of the sites that I did in 2024. So this is kind of what it looks like. This one was really fun because it looked great the first year after planting. Some of the seeds really took off. You can see blanket flower was doing really well. Some June grass, Colomia, Oregon sunshine, Clarkia, which was not the, Willamette Valley variety, but and then we also had some GM. I'm gonna forget the common name of that one, but yeah. Next. So yeah, this is just like a different angle of that first one that you saw. So this was the second one that we planted in 2024. Really happy Oregon sunshine. And there's also, I think that is California buckwheat. So the PSU seed bank was a partner of ours for that bike planting, and they donated some really fun, unique plants. So there is this California buckwheats that were planted in 2 of these plantings and that are doing really well so far. Next. And so this is just kind of a zoomed out version of what that planting looks like. This did surprisingly well because 3 months after we planted this, the utility company came in and replaced a pole. So actually kind of stomped on quite a few of the plants, but it still did okay with some of the things that we seeded in. Next. I think that's it. Yeah.
Wonderful, Kim. I don't have any questions, but I have a comment to that last photo that you were showing.
Yeah.
Yes, I certified that yard this
Oh, great.
fall, and she had been written up earlier this spring for her virtuous signaling, and the neighbors were complaining about her. And I didn't realize that you were doing the bee that was you.
Yeah.
But the flowers look beautiful even after the power people came through. And with the rest of her yard, I certified her platinum. So
Oh,
thank you
amazing.
for
That's great.
thank you for
Yeah.
making that happen.
Yeah, the neighbors were not excited. It's definitely a very traditional, lots of green curated lawn in that neighborhood, but
Yeah,
I'm excited
wonderful
for it.
work. Wonderful work.
Anyway, these are photos by Michael Stein, botanist and wetland scientist at Turnstone Environmental Consultants in Portland. And he does a lot of wetland delineation stuff, but also does personal botanical forays across much of Oregon and does some rare plant stuff also with several people. And so these are his pictures. And so the first one is Agrostis howellii, which is Howell's bent grass, taken early July, quick road side stop on the way to Eastern Oregon. It's a really pretty grass, remarkably lush, and seems to really embody the beauty of the endemic species of the gorge. So if you're out hiking in the central gorge, this is one of those that you will see. The next plant is Carex macrochaeta, Alaska long on sedge. Excuse me. It's a breathtaking species to see in person and was one that he wasn't expecting to run into at that time. This was found right alongside the Agrostis howellii and Sullivantia oregana in the spray zone of an unnamed fall in the gorge. For those curious, the long on name comes from the 1 to 3 millimeter long awns visible on the pistillate scales of this species. Remarkably, that awn can be up to 12 millimeters in populations further north. So I think he's talking about, I don't know if you can see my pointer here or not, but is, let's see here. Up, here we go. So anyway, it's right in here. Oops. Okay, next one is Erigeron howellii, another Oregon endemic. It's the last species from the gorge that he's hoping to showcase. And it's a beautiful, Howell's fleabane is a beautiful, showy species endemic to the Western Gorge, a species that hopefully many of you recognize. And it is a rare plant also, Orbic list 1, which is threatened. This is giant helberine. It's an orchid, Epipactis gigantea. It's an amazing species that can really stop you in your tracks. Just look at those flowers. This individual was part of a sizable population along the Santiam River, seen while en route to local botanical surveys in the area around Three Sisters. Again, quite stunning, and it's kind of more of a riparian or wetland plant. Another threatened species here, Orbic list 1, Patterson's bittercrest or Saddle Mountain bittercrest, Cardamine pattersonii, is a species that's endemic to Saddle Mountain in Clatsop County. If you haven't visited before, occasionally the chapter does field trips there. It's an insane spot with lots and lots of plant diversity. But this one, this little bittercrest is found at the summit and then on some of the steep rocky slopes heading up that way. Delphinium leucophaeum, peacock larkspur, is a species that a lot of us are aware of. Also a threatened plant, and it was one of the first species that he took a deep dive on in our suburban area, botanizing. Remarkable to be able to find this species in such a heavily developed area such as Lake Oswego. They're just kind of pop up here and there every once in a while. Next plant is one of his favorite plants from 2025, Carex nardina, spikenard sedge. It's a subalpine alpine sedge, not commonly found in the Pacific Northwest, only known in Oregon from 3 locations prior to this year in the Strawberries, Wallowas, and Three Sisters. However, a couple of other people that do some rare plant work with them found that it's also up on Mount Hood, and so the 2 photographs here are from that expedition to go and look for it. And so it's found above the tree line on slopes like this, scenic. In the alpine, a lot of times the grasslands are actually sedge lands and occasionally some of the wood rushes. Anyway, Carex nardina. Next plant is Ralphia occidentalis, and it's a rare species from the Alvord Desert of southeast Oregon. Its common name is iodine bush, and so it was one of the target species of rare plant work out in that area this past summer. The Alvord is basically the northern extent of the range for this plant in southeastern Oregon. Following all the botanical surveys, the number of known populations in the state of Oregon has roughly tripled since that time. This is Alvord. Oops, this is the habitat of the iodine bush. This is Alvord milkvetch, and it's a quite a pretty little species also found out there in the Alvord Desert of eastern Oregon. Allium punctum, also found out in the Alvord Desert of southeast Oregon, common in Nevada and Malheur counties to the east. And here it's seen with another rare plant, Paiute desert parsley or Raven's desert parsley there on the right, there's its fruits. Also rare, as I said. The next plant is Carex subnigricans. This was found on a short trip to the summit of the Steins Mountain between botanical surveys in that area, and it's hardly found anyplace else in Oregon. It's a nearly black sedge, very, very dark, and has just basically one head on it. Found only in the Steins and also in the Wallowas. Okay, next plant is Sedum debil and weak stem stone crop. Again, this one was found very high up above 9,000 feet on the Steins Mountain in August. And here we have little rice grass, the head of it, and this is Piptathoropsis exiguia, only known in Oregon from a handful of sites in northeastern Oregon. This one's found out in the Strawberries near near Prairie City, and then also in the Elkhorn Mountains to the north. And here's a view of the whole plant. Second to last plant is a nice little sedge, Carex capillaris. He had a chance to see this while visiting in Glacier National Park this summer. And it was his first time visiting the Continental Divide. Oops, okay. And then lastly, we have the rock willow, known only in the Wallowas. And it's, again, a cute little small willow. And with that, then any questions, even though Michael's not here?
Questions. But Mary made the comment that the peacock larkspurs, and I'm also whether it's the peacock or the pale at Kenema Bluff and Lake Oswego were planted years ago by a Reed grad student of Keith Carrolley. And he called it the pale larkspur or the white rock larkspur.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I do know it's across the river at Cammack, and I believe that there is a natural occurring
Well, the
species. I've never
Camacks,
seen either of them in nature. I tried growing the peacock one once, and it just doesn't do well, at least in my garden. So
yeah, the pale one, which is at Camassia and is also at Cooper Mountain. I have a
yeah,
photo coming up. And those have actually been planted by Metro
okay,
through their seeds.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but thank you, Mary.
Okay, so we're going to do some slides that I took this year, and so these were taken in New Zealand. So four chapter members um, took the long flight down to New Zealand in January and spent 3 weeks on a nature trek tour. And Nature Trek is a English company, and I recommend them highly if you're interested in any kind of nature, because they don't, much of the time they allow you to get out and walk and hike part of the day at least, or as opposed to just drive and stop and drive and stop type of thing. Anyway, this is Mount Doom in the distance here, and we're at Tongariro National Park for the start. Those are tussock grasslands, which were found all over New Zealand, both islands at one time. Those were plowed up and converted to sheeplands, and so you mostly see these tussock grasses in the national parks. Should also mention that this area has burned. Much of that view that I'm showing here burned significantly, and they had another fire there this week. Our first day, we got off the plane after about 36 hours or whatever without any sleep, and immediately we're off on the road, and we visited a kauri forest, which is a native forest. The kauri is a relative of a baobab, if you're familiar with that. Very, very large, thick-trunked trees, endangered in the North Island of New Zealand. There's a little bit more subtropical. And this particular preserve, in order to enter, that's all fenced off, so other creatures can't get in there, and you have to go through a chemical treatment on your shoes to not track in fungi and things like that to kill the native flora. Then moving on, a couple days later, we're at Tongariro National Park on a hike, and here's swamp orchids, those nice blue orchids there with kind of purplish veins on the upper petals. And down below the red is one of a number of sundews that are in the park. Oops. Here's a manuka tree, and some of you have enjoyed manuka honey. And so it grows abundantly around the park headquarters area. Quite nice to see. Nice shrub. We traveled a little bit further south, still in the North Island, and came across this viney, kind of like a shrub, called cacabeak or parrot's beak, and quite rare. And so it was a treat to see that. It's a member of the pea family, as you can probably guess. Okay, so and then we crossed over to the South Island, which was an experience going across on the ferry in high seas, and went to Kahurungi National Park and did a hike up to Mount Arthur, and so saw lots of spear grass. There's a lot of species of spear grass. Believe it or not, these look like yuccas, but they're actually in the parsley family related to lomatiums. And I don't know if you can see my pointer up here, but it's got palmate leaves on the stems. Quite interesting to see. Also on the same track, the Arthur Mountain track, these beautiful mountain foxgloves, not related to our foxglove, but quite pretty. And this happened to be our only rainy day during a 3-week trip. Also on the same trip, Mountain Cottonwood or Mountain Tauhinu, which is the Maori name. And so this it's usually kind of white flowered, kind of a mini shrub, quite attractive. But this particular one had these beautiful little pinkish buds. And then off into the Black Birch Mountains, which is between Blenheim and let's see here, Kaikoura. We did a side trip up into the Black Birch Mountains and saw a number of interesting plants. This is called vegetable sheep, and it's called that because it's several feet long and about a foot high or so. And seen from a distance, it looks like a reclining sheep. It's in the sunflower family, if you haven't guessed. Oops. More members of the sunflower family. We have evening daisy on the upper right, that gray, silvery gray colored plant. And then the one with the broader green leaves with kind of the silver edges is mountain daisy, Samisia spectabilis. And then up above, you can see all kinds of cute little grasses, mountain grasses and lichens. And it's just a wonderful country to go and explore all kinds of botanical stuff. The cotton daisies just seen a little bit closer up. I believe this one was down in the Hooker Valley. Also down in the Hooker Valley, a quorum-bearing gentian, Gentianella quorumbifera. Quite a nice little thing. And then we did see other gentians, which are even smaller. This is a native lobelia, lawn lobelia, Panakaneki, and this also was in the Hooker Valley. This is one of my favorite bushes, musk tree or daisy bush. Saw it at a couple of locations. Real silvery foliage, and then cute little white flower. Stands about 2 to maybe 4 feet high and about as wide. Most of the Raulias or mat daisies are really tiny individuals. The flowers are maybe the size of a pencil eraser diameter. This is the big showy one. This is large flowered mat daisy. And I believe we saw this in the Old Man Range on a wonderful day that we had up in that area. And also Maori onion. Not an onion, but they call it an onion. Okay, so we are, first of all, any questions here before I set it on to Susan?
No questions yet. I'm sure we have plenty, so maybe they'll come out later.
Okay. Well, we'll introduce Susan here.
Okay, so I'm going to take you on a trip up on Mount Adams at Bird Creek Meadows. We go about 4 times a season when the Yakama Nation has the gate on the road up to Bird Creek Meadows open. So we went, I think opening day was July 25th. We went again on August 1st, August 8th, and this trip is August 19th. So by then the snow had all melted, and so we decided to do the really high route. We have 4 different routes, so each time we go, we do a different hike. So this time we did the Mountain Climbers Trail we go as far as the base of the lateral moraine for the Mazama Glacier. And so I'm just going to show some of the subalpine and alpine flowers, and I'm going to be nice and use common names in my on my pictures. All my plant common names are according to the Burke Herbarium, since we're in Washington, and sometimes Oregon Flora uses different common names for the same species. So I try to go with whatever state I'm in using the names that they have accepted for plants. So the thing to know about the Mountain Climbers Trail is it's a boot path, and it's easy to get lost because you get to certain points and there'll be trails going in several directions and you don't know which one is the right way. And you may not we even on this hike made a wrong turn, got ourselves righted, but we had missed an easy spot where we can go up over the ridge. So even though we've gone there many times over the years, we forget from year to year exactly how the route goes. So I would only recommend this if you are good at route finding and being able to retreat if you take the wrong route and keep yourself oriented. But the Climbers Trail actually goes all the way up to Sunrise Camp from back in the old days when the mountain climbers, Mazamas, Seattle Mountaineers would come and camp at Bird Creek Meadows and go up and then have a camp at sunrise, and then they could climb Mount Adams up the Mazama Glacier route. I talked to one of my climber friends in the Mazamas, and he said that, yeah, they don't use it much anymore because with global warming, climate change, the glacier's really broken up with a lot of crevasses, and it's very challenging, if not unsafe, to go that route. So most climbing on Mount Adams is either from the south climb or they go up the North Cleaver on the north side for a more rugged trip. And so this mountain climbers trail isn't getting used by mountain climbers anymore. It's mostly just hikers hiking up to the moraines or beyond, depending on how energetic they are. So anyway, in this photo, we see magenta paintbrush, pink mountain heather, and partridge foot along the way as we're ascending. Next. Okay, and there are meadows along the path. And so at this one, we see subalpine lupin, mountain arnica, and magenta paintbrush. These are kind of dips in the landscape where the snow accumulates and lingers, so they have a little bit more moisture to support wildflower gardens. Next. So now we're getting up closer to timberline. We're up in the white bark pine country on the east side of Mount Adams, and have these really lush meadows where the snow has recently melted of mountain bog gentian. Next. Continuing to climb up, we get near the base of the moraine, and this is actually the headwaters of Bird Creek and all its feeder streams, is water from the glacier seeping through the moraine and emerging as springs at the base of the moraine. And that's where you find things like large mountain monkey flower. Next. At this spot, we also had talus willow herb. Next. And alpine saxifrage. I learned this as tomies a long time ago, but now the common name, at least in Washington, is alpine saxifrage. Next. One of my favorites, pussy paws. And in Washington, they don't call it Mount Hood pussy paws. It's just pussy paws. So I guess they decided not to be geographic in the state of Washington. Next. And in the drier areas, we get away from the subalpine lupin and we have silky lupin on these drier slopes. You can see the moraine in the background still having snowfields on it. So as that snow is melting, it's feeding these headwater streams right here at the base of the moraine. Next. And because we have all these wonderful streams up here now, we're up in the alpine. We have Lewis's monkey flower, subalpine lupin, and subalpine fleabane all blooming along this stream. And all of these streams, of course, then feed down the mountain into Bird Creek. Next. And this is standing at one of those springs and looking out over where the water's going. So again, we have large mountain monkey flower, Lewis's monkey flower, subalpine lupin, and subalpine fleabane all are really visible in this photo. The green off in the valley to the left is the Glenwood Valley, Convoy Lake National Wildlife Refuge. And then you see Mount Hood on the horizon. Below Mount Hood is the Trout Lake Valley. So this sort of orients you to where you are on Mount Adams. And you can see that we're pretty much above all the trees now. We're even above the white bark pines at this point. Next. And happened to find mountain bog laurel. There wasn't much of it blooming. Most of it was done, but I was able to capture one plant. Next. A lot of paintbrushes up there too. In the drier place, we have common paintbrush. So up on these old moraines that are vegetated and they're well drained, that's where you're going to find this one. Next. My favorite thing is to get on some of these talus slopes and look for these little tiny alpine cushion plants. And Larson's alpine colomia, I think, is really cute with the purple petals and the little blue stamens. Next. And we found a mountain sorrel in bloom up against a boulder. Next. And another really cute plant, definitely something that's adapted for living in tough conditions with the really hairy leaves to prevent moisture loss, is small alpine gold, or hulsea. Next. Thompson's paintbrush is also at places along the Mountain Climbers Trail. Next. And as Don showed from Mount Hood, subalpine mariposa. This one I really liked because it was growing in the middle of a clump of woolly pussy toes. Next. Bracted lousewort is quite common up in this zone also. Next. And Cascade rock cress is our main Erebus. And finally, on our way down, below Hell Roaring Overlook, there are some really nice meadows. And this one had a magenta paintbrush, fan leaf cinquefoil, and subalpine lupin blooming all together in these just wonderfully nature-created alpine gardens. And that's it.
Okay, any questions for Susan?
No, just some appreciation for all her pussy paws from Mary, Rosie pussy paws, or all of those. Thank you.
Okay, Roger, you're up.
Okay, you have my first slide. My photos are starting in Pinnacles National Park in California. It's in the Coast Range, about midway between the Central Valley and the coast, at about west of Monterey. It's I was there in late February. It's one of the sites selected to repopulate condors into the wild. Next picture. And you really can see condors flying over you when you're hiking on the trails there. Next picture. And here they are in trees. I think that's digger pine. Next picture. Another beautiful condor. It was early in the Pinnacles for blooms, but there were a few. Next picture. This is Cleveland shooting star. A lot of them in a field, and the close-up. Next picture. This is Archistaphylos glauca. Archistaphylos manzanita is one of my favorite plants. You have here on the left the beautiful red bark that's characteristic of manzanita, and a kudos to Kim for planting manzanita in the strips in Portland. The middle picture shows the, I forgot to say, this is the big berry manzanita, and the middle picture shows last year's berries, and the picture on the right shows this year's flowers. Manzanita is an early bloomer. I'm fine that there weren't a lot of flowers in Pinnacles. As many of you know, if there are ferns, I'm happy. Archistaphylos pungens was also on the list of plants in Pinnacles National Park, but I didn't see it. Next picture. This is the chain fern. I believe the chain name comes from the sori that you can see on the bottom side of the leaf on the picture on the right. it is related to the deer fern, which we have growing here. Chain fern does grow in southern Oregon, but not in our vicinity. Next picture. Bird's foot cliff break on the left, and coffee fern, which is also a cliff break on the right. Next picture. And California maidenhair fern. Next picture, we're leaving Pinnacles. This is Ice Lake in the Wallowa Mountains. I was there late August. I did have another picture of a beautiful whitebark pine just to the right of this picture, but when I went to open it for this, it gave me a message that the file had been corrupted, so I can't show you that. I studied in iNaturalist before I went to find out what plants I would find at Ice Lake. Shout out to anyone doing hiking. I strongly encourage you to check iNaturalist to see what other people have found in the area where you're going to be hiking. iNaturalist showed that there were 3 ferns on the back side of the lake. The Krukeberg sword fern, which I had never seen, the Brewer's cliff break fern, and the northern holly fern. This lake is about 8,000 feet elevation. It was a 6-mile hike from our campsite up to here, meaning I had another 6 miles to hike back to the campsite. It was about 2,500 feet on switchback straight up the side of the mountain. I was in no condition to go to the far end of the lake to find those ferns. As you can see, it's a long distance back. Next picture. But I did, on the side of the lake that I reached, where you saw the picture of me, I did find the Brewer's cliff break fern. I had seen this once before last year in Stein's Mountain. Next picture. And the northern holly fern I saw earlier this year in North Cascades National Park. I'm not including pictures from that trip here because of our limitation in time. The only fern that I had never seen before anywhere, the Krukeberg sword fern, I did not find. So that remains a fern remaining for me to see someday. Next picture. This is Ranger's Button. This plant is a friend of mine. It follows me around. I hike in the Cascades and I find it. I went to Sierra Nevada at Lake Tahoe and there it was, smiling at me. And now again here in the Wallowas, I ran into it. Next picture. This is Escholt's Buttercup. Next picture. This is Alpine Wintergreen. Now, I've seen Alpine Wintergreen a lot. It grows in our area, Mount Hood and nearby areas. But in the Wallowas, there was a hillside of it with beautiful red berries that stretched for about a mile on the trail I was hiking on. It was most spectacular. Next picture. White Mariposa lily. And then my last picture, next. Yellow columbine, which I had not seen before, even though I have botanized in Colorado. A real treat to see it. And thank you all for sharing my trips with me.
Richard, Don says that you should go back to Pinnacles in April.
He's right. I should.
Okay, Lecia.
I guess I'll keep my volume on. Go ahead.
Okay.
So my series of selections, the 1%, like you all found out of all of our photos, right, to share, have to do with my iNaturalist year in review, shall we say, from all the different BioBlitzes. Okay. So starting in spring, marching into spring, where do we have to go to find flowers in March? We have to go on the east side. So here we have the Lomatian Papillonferum. And of course, we can debate that one, but that's what it kept coming up and others agreed. And then the Lathyrus rigidus. And I believe I even got a comment from Paul on this one that it's rarely found. This was found at Canada, so slightly out of its range. Next. And of course, what would spring be without finding a Calypso bulbosa? I'm thinking it's the Occidentalis, but possibly the Americana. I don't know. Again, I'm just always happy to find them. And typically I am now noticing which mosses, which to look for, and the other plants. And this particular area, there were anemones, and I normally do not find them with anemones. Next. And here's all those beautiful anemones and the 3 anemones that can be found up at Whistlepunk or at Wind River Experimental Station and the Arboretum, but mostly at Whistlepunk. And just the variations are amazing. I did have a later one where the seed pod, but that one didn't get in here. The gray eye is the least frequent. So next. And and we're into April now. So that last slide also was from April and the Native Plant Appreciation Month. So this is our trip to Lacamas Prairie. And we actually, this is not in April, we went back in June because in June, the Penstemon hespereus is blooming. And so we got a special trip back in, and of all things, we found this cut leaf. I don't know, Roger or somebody can help me which particular grape fern this is, but we found this special grape fern on our way back in the woods to find the Penstemon. Next. Now we are into May, and May is wildflower, no matter what your version of a flower is. And these were all down at the beach. We did a hike with Dina Pavlov at the dunes. And certainly the rhododendrons and the evergreen huckleberry at the coast in May are just stupendous. But the allotropa, lots of those, and what are the pine cone looking ones? Anyway, there were a lot of different monotropes. And then this Glynia littoralis, so striking, so striking. And I also, there are 2 kinds of Scotch broom down there, the Portuguese and then the regular Scots broom. Next. So this was early June, and the June bloom was the theme for June. Totally skipped over the annual meeting. Oh, well, that was hundreds of photos in itself. So June bloom and the insects that we find on different plants. And in this case, this is in one of those burned areas, not on the Clackamas, but this is on the Molalla River, which was part of the Beachy Creek fire. And so broadleaf lupin, there were so many pioneer species. This was the second year that Rick and I had gone back, and we had some other folks with us this year. Whoops. Back. But there's all of these skeleton trees like the dogwood, the Pacific dogwood, yet they are coming to life, and it's just amazing to see. Next. So here's that Delphinium leucophaeum, the pale larkspur. I didn't know if that was really the way to write endemic, but I think that was mentioned earlier. And they were doing so well up at Mount Cooper this year. So that was exciting. And yet they faded. By the time we did our official hike, they had almost faded out. So you got to catch them. And then the Sidalcia, whether it's a campestris or oregana, but there's a person you get to know on iNaturalist, these names that keep popping up, and Tyler Pedersen. And so I kept hearing and seeing Tyler Pedersen. And then I went back to an old email, and there his name was, that he actually works for the Tualatin Valley Soil and Water Conservation District. So I figured he knew his stuff. So he had it down as the oregano. Next. And thanks to Paul, he corrected my broadleaf to my big leaf. And this is up at Little Crater Lake in June. And it was amazing. And as you can see by the Plantathera dilatata, the bog orchid, it was just huge. And so many beautiful, wonderful plants in there. I was hoping that we did a camp out, but I didn't. It was kind of confusing because it was coordinated with another event I was doing, and it was just like too much to coordinate. But I'm hoping this next year we can go do a camp out at Little Crater Lake Campground. Next. And again, kind of wetlands were a theme this year, but this is all that alpine. That's right. In July, we started moving, June and July and August, we have our alpine BioBlitz. So we're looking above that snow line, not quite alpine, but at least subalpine. And the round sundew. And this one was from Anvil Lake. So our Black Wolf Meadows, Anvil Lake, which is just a stone's throw from Little Crater Lake. Next. And every year, of course, I have to show the neat plants that my son has outside of Sandy. I missed the Columbia lily, but this particular spirea shows up. There's only one in 40 acres. And I was very disappointed to find out that it's really not a native, but I leave it alone and enjoy it while it's there. I thought it was the meadowsweet until I heated out. Next. Oh, back on that last one too. Again, a picture dropped out somehow, like Roger was saying. He has the Schooler's harebell. And there's really only one or two other places I've seen the Schooler's harebell. So it's very sweet to find it all over his property, which was logged, but they did a fairly nice job of logging. Next. And so then into October was the fall fruits and seeds. Always trying to find the seed pods and get the pictures of the seed pods, but these were too stunning to miss. I had never seen a giant blazing star, and both of these were over in the John Day fossil beds. So I would love to do an overnight field trip over there if anybody's up to it. And then the Erigerum niveum, the snow buckwheat. And this is one that kept coming up as a slightly different species, but certainly lots of buckwheats over there and very unusual plants. Next. Okay, so now we have some of our seeds and surprising azaleas blooming in October. And this is the Western azalea, the Rhododendron occidentale. And this area that these three were taken is the $8 mountain. I posted this rhododendron and asked David Anderson where I was. And he goes, oh, $8 mountain, having no idea where I was in Oregon, but he pegged it. And then here's another one of Roger's manzanitas. This one is the white leaf, which is the pretty common one down there. And then again, another iNaturalist community flesh out was this Quercus garryana. There were not many oaks in this area. They're mostly the Jeffrey pine and a different pine. Some other pine came up as well. But And Selmac, since this is in Selma and there's Lake Selmiak, it came up as that first, but then there was some conversation and somebody deferred to our Mart Hughes. And so I heard from Mart that this is like another variety, the Sadleriana. So very interesting. And again, just this community of people that we are able to interact with through iNaturalist. Next.
Okay, Lisa,
Yes.
we're running long, so if you could go a little bit faster.
Okay. So I don't know. Does anybody know meadow knapweed? Because this was at where we stayed at the Siskiyou Field Institute, and it was everywhere. And it was really hard to understand that that they would let this invasive run everywhere. So I was hoping it was meadow knapweed, which is not invasive. I don't know. Next. This is a garden plant here locally, Northeast Portland. I think it's just gorgeous. Doesn't have to be native to be gorgeous. Next. And then, oh, that was part of the non-native November. Sorry, those next BioBlitz. And the colorful Viburnum ellipticum. I don't think we normally see their color. We think about them in spring. Next. And this one is not the farewell to spring, it's hello winter. I just took this photo last week. So thank you.
Okay, Mary's photos here. Oh, first of all, any questions for Lisa?
No, it just looks like Jason put a finer detail on which grape fern that was. Thank you, Jason.
Multifidum, I'm guessing.
Yeah. What's the translation of that?
It's Septridium multifidum, and I can't remember what the common name is.
Okay. Oh, so next. Well, okay, we can look at this picture and I'll read this. This is from Mary. Early November at Deschutes River State Recreation Area. While Deschutes River State Recreation Area is known for its impressive spring bloom, consider visiting on a sunny day in early November. The most astounding find for Mary and her crew there was the gorgeous snow buckwheat, the Originum niveum. In full bloom, it was ubiquitous, came in multiple shades of pink or white, and I had never heard of or seen it before. The area was once a homestead, so domestic trees, including walnut, mulberry, almond, and plum, are found there. The white alder along the river may also have been planted. This is just a small sample of what we found. I hope you'll visit someday and see all of it. My Mary's identifications are mostly from iNaturalist and may not be correct. And I think Dawn is heading out there again soon, right, Dawn?
Okay. Just real quickly, annual fleabane, Erigeron annuus, actually introduced. I actually have this in my yard, and it is a great bee attractor. So I have it in my vegetable garden, and it takes over. Blanket flowers with snow buckwheats. Blanket flowers in bloom. Should still be in bloom now, also at Columbia Hills. Either Canada goldenrod, or I'm thinking this actually should be Solidago gigantea, giant goldenrod, found up at various springs and along the river at the Deschutes. Common mullein. Birds love the seeds, and that's why it spreads. Hairy golden aster, very, very long bloom period from May to now, and perhaps later. I think we've seen it in January before if there's no frost. White mulberry, love the leaves. Nice little tree, non-native. Several types of rabbit brush. This is the gray rabbit brush or rubber rabbit brush because of the gray color. They bloom late, and probably you could find some there still in bloom now. Sand mat plants get to be maybe 5-6 inches across, prostrate across the ground. Smooth sumac, quite pretty in the fall, and growing up out of Himalayan blackberry and the fruits of the smooth sumac. Snow buckwheat can be cream and pink and bright red in terms of its the flower color. One of the latest of the blooming buckwheats. And here's a lighter colored one. And a close-up of the flower head. This is very similar to strict buckwheat, which tends to bloom earlier in the year and have a little bit different leaf structure. But really, it's best to be looking at the smaller details beneath the individual flowers to identify between the two. Tumbleweed, Russian thistle is another name, non-native. Pretty though. Bees love this plant and other insects. Varied leaf Phacelia usually has one or two erect stems, and as opposed to the silver leaf, which has multiple stems that are usually lower to the ground. A native thistle, you don't spray or pull all thistles out in nature. There's many native ones. This is wavy leaf thistle, and they bloom again from May into now. Poison ivy, leaves of 3, let it be. Quite pretty. I have seen a couple of nurseries actually sell this. They say it's for keeping people out. And several types of sweet clover there. This is white sweet clover. There's also yellow sweet clover. Again, introduced. Again, this was a farm and grazed at one point along the Deschutes. And green rabbit brush. Both are found there. This one has greener leaves, which are a little bit harder to see in this picture. Blooms late too. And this is yellow salsify or oyster plant, the yellow flowered form. Okay, we had a couple of, so I guess before we go on, did anybody have any questions for Murray? We'll try and answer them as best as we can.
I don't see any specific questions. Sounds like maybe Don's taking another trip up there this Saturday, if anybody's interested in going back to Deschutes River. I also put a link in there from a very, oh, now I'm going to forget his name. Anyway, but there's a nice description of the identification between the different buckwheats. So
Okay.
if you follow that link.
Okay. And so just a few extra pictures, and I don't have labels from Michael Stein, but a nice alpine sedge, Carex phaeocephala, which I believe is dunhead sedge. I've seen it a lot up on Mount Adams, and it's also in the alpine areas up on Mount Hood. And I think that's the alpine form of goldenrod there to the left and right of the sedge. And a close-up of the sedge, inflorescence. Those are the spikes are both male and female. You can see the anthers coming off of them, and then there's also some styles there. This is a really choice little plant, Dimeresia howellii, and you can see the size there. It's actually in the sunflower family and found across low to moderate, kind of like screed areas, rocky areas in central Oregon. I've seen it at Fort Rock. And also at Fort Rock, Phacelia nana. It's an annual, I believe, and again, like all Phacelias, would be an insect attractor. Quite a nice choice plant. And then I'm not quite sure where this particular one is. I'm guessing up on Mount Hood. You can see, I think most of the bushes there are willows, and I think I can see some monkey flowers and yellow, that kind of thing. And interestingly, 20 years ago, this was probably under snow and ice. And I believe that is it for, all the pictures we have here. So thank you to all our presenters. We went a little bit long, but again, exceptional pictures by everybody and good descriptions.